Welcome, brothers and sisters. Today we'll be covering so much information, from weapons to perks and skills and spells and builds for solo and team play and diagrams and a whole bunch of information here on how to actually become a better cleric. Out of respect for your time, I'll be moving very fast. If you want to go back and rewatch something, check out the YouTube chapters below. As a cleric, your strengths include having the best heals in the game currently, great buffs for yourself and your teammates. You have armor choice flexibility in that you can wear cloth, leather, or plate, and you have decent DPS if you're fully buffed. As for weaknesses, clerics are very vulnerable against ranged damage. We don't have great ways to deal with this, and we are weak against kiting. When you put these two together, it's a nightmare for clerics to deal with. Also, we have the slowest interaction speed in the game, which means we are the slowest to loot chests and slowest to open or close doors. Clerics also have slow attack speed and move speed. When it comes to melee weapons, you have 4 options: the flanged mace, the morning star, the war maul, and the quarterstaff. The morning star has more range and slightly better damage, while the flanged mace has better attack speed. This means if you're hitting every single headshot, the flanged mace has better DPS. However, the morning star makes it much easier to actually land your hits. If you're new to this game, I highly suggest using a morning star, especially with PvE. Remember, you want to hit the enemy with the top head of your mace, not the handle, otherwise you'll do reduced damage. Here you see I move forward and immediately I'm doing less damage. This makes a huge difference in your DPS. If you can hit the enemy with the head and not the handle, then the war maul has some great DPS. Don't expect good players to stand still though. Although good against PDR shield fighters, the war maul makes our weaknesses even worse. We're even more slow and vulnerable to being kited. If you want to play war maul, I strongly suggest you just play barbarian. It's viable for a cleric, but in the hands of a barbarian, you can reach the weapon's true potential. The quarterstaff's main niche seems to be that it has no handle hits. You can face hug the enemy and not be worried about doing reduced damage due to hitting the handle. However, it suffers from the same downsides as the war maul. It makes you quite slow and you cannot have a shield. Unless you get a really good drop in the dungeon or Iron Mace changes this, I don't really recommend it. For casting implements, you can either use the spellbook or the magic staff. The magic staff does have a melee attack. Here I show you the casting speed of both weapons in comparison. I'm casting 3 buffs on myself. As you can see, the spellbook has faster casting speed with its animation. The advantage to the magic staff is that it has higher magical damage. This only matters if you're using Locust Swarm, Judgment, Holy Purification, Earthquake, or Holy Strike, or if you're doing like a melee smite bonk build, which is very viable. In fact, I made a video on that, linked in the description below. Alright, perks and skills. For solo cleric, this is what I run 90% of the time. Sometimes I will throw in Judgment, or if I'm doing a cleric smite staff build, throw in Brewmaster in lieu of blunt weapon mastery. As a team play cleric, if I'm full support cleric, I'm going to be running kindness instead of blunt weapon mastery. Again, you can throw in Judgment if you want. But if I'm expected to be on the front line at all, I'll probably throw in blunt weapon mastery in place of protection from evil. Alright, let's go over every perk and skill available to cleric. For perks, protection from evil is pretty good. It reduces all debuff duration and harmful effects like slows and CC by 50%. That's pretty good. Just be careful when you're bossing against Lich. Perseverance is a fantastic perk. I always take it. It reduces all damage by 3. This increases your survivability. It's great in solo and in teams. Advanced Healer. The whole point of picking Cleric is that you have heals, you are the best healer in the game. Why not make your biggest strength even stronger? Blunt Weapon Mastery makes a noticeable difference in your power when you're holding a blunt weapon. Keep in mind your magic staff does not count as a blunt weapon. Brewmaster turns the drunk debuff into a buff. This means it'll last a bit longer and you won't get the vision effects of being drunk. However, those vision effects are not very strong, so this perk kind of feels like a waste. Ale is fantastic, 11 strength is good, but I don't think you need this perk. Keep in mind if you're running protection from evil without the Ale perk, then it will last 50% shorter. Holy Aura I see a lot of people take, but I am not a fan of personally. It's only 15 armor rating and 15 magic resist, and your allies have to be standing pretty close. Most importantly for me, it puts a large particle effect underneath you that is very bright. You can see it in the dark, and you can see it very far away because of how obnoxiously bright it is. Kindness is a fantastic perk to take in Teamplay. When you heal your allies, you will also heal yourself for 15% of the spell's total heal amount. This means maybe you can save a heal and not have to use it on yourself. It makes your heals last a little bit further, especially in the current era when our heals have been nerfed. Requiem gives your ally 50% HP when he revives instead of just a little bit, like 5%. And when you use an Altar of Sacrifice, you don't need to use any of your health. Okay, this is a waste of a perk. It doesn't matter at all. You can get your ally up to 50% by casting one Holy Light on him. Not worth it. Undead Slaying only helps you against monsters in PvE, which means this feels like a waste of a perk when we have so many better options available to us. I can really only recommend this if you're a crazy person like me and you want a solo boss. If you're looking for a guide on that, I did a solo boss guide on Ghost King. Alright, for skills, spell memory is required, otherwise you can't cast spells, so that's an easy pick. Divine Protection gives you 30% reduction against physical damage only, and it's only 4 seconds. I really don't like this one, it's too short and the cooldown is too long, it doesn't do enough. Holy Purification is my favorite skill for new players to take. It's great at clearing rooms and dealing with PvE, especially once you get to the harder difficulties like Inferno and HR. If you don't know how to dodge mobs, this will increase your survivability of you and your party immensely. Alright, that leaves us with Smite and Judgment. These are both good skills, however, I take them in different situations, and overall I'd say I prefer Smite at the moment. Smite will give you extra magic damage on your melee hits, and it has a quick cooldown, it comes back very quickly. I like it a lot, especially if I get jumped and I don't have time to cast on my buffs. This comes out very quickly. Judgment is a bit more finicky and hard to use, and it's not guaranteed to land. Alright, let me explain a few things about Judgment. This is you, the Cleric, this is an enemy, and this is the 5-meter radius of your skill. Now, you can start casting the skill as long as your crosshair is on the enemy, not their shield, but the enemy. However, if the enemy goes outside of the circle during the casting time, it will go on cooldown, and you've just wasted your skill completely. On the other hand, if the enemy goes towards you, and you cast Judgment on them, but before you switch to your melee weapon, they start hitting you, well, you've just traded with them, and in most cases, Judgment for melee hits is not worth it. Two things to note: if the enemy's going outside the circle and you know he's going to do it, you can cancel your cast and your Judgment will not go on cooldown. You'll still have it available. Second, the higher your knowledge is, the faster you can cast Judgment. This makes it easier to use Judgment at higher gear level. Finally, keep in mind you can increase the damage by holding a casting weapon or something with magic damage. Spell time! Let's do it! So, for base kit solo Cleric, this is what I'll run. As I gain more knowledge as a solo, I'll throw in Sanctuary in place of one of these. It depends on my build. Now for Teamplay Cleric, budget build, this is what I'll be running. I'll throw in Holy Light for my team. As you gain more knowledge, you can start throwing on the big boy spells like Earthquake, and if you have enough, even Resurrection. Maybe Sanctuary. It depends on what your build is and what your team comp is. A lot of factors determine what spells you want to take. Now I'll go over all the spells individually. Protection gives a 20 physical damage shield for 20 seconds. It also prevents headshot modifier additional damage. Fantastic for a tier 1 spell. Bless grants 9 stats, that's 3 strength, 3 agility, and 3 will, which are all good on Cleric, for 30 seconds. You can also cast this on others. Both of these are fantastic tier 1 spells. Cleanse is mostly used for bossing. You can remove Ghost King stacks and Lich circle mechanics. Otherwise, it's not super useful. Lesser Heal is amazing. It grants 15 HP to you or an ally. You generally want to save these for yourself if you're in team play and use the Holy Lights on your teammates. Speaking of, Holy Light grants 25 HP, or it can do 100 magical damage to an undead enemy. It's situational for bossing, but for healing teammates, it's clutch. Both of these have been nerfed. You get 3 charges instead of 4, and it takes longer to cast them. We'll see how these nerfs play out. Divine Strike is great. It gives 5 additional weapon damage for 20 seconds to you or another person. It's especially good on fast attacking characters. Bind is not great right now. I'm surprised they haven't buffed it yet. It binds them for 0.75 seconds. but keep in mind you have to cast it, which pretty much takes just as long. There's really not any point to taking this. I've tried to make it work with rangers and wizards, but it's just not great. Holy Strike is not bad. It does 15 magical damage and blinds the enemy for 2 seconds, which is a depreciating blind. It's not a full 2 seconds. And now it's nerfed to where there's a 0.5 second delay after you cast it. So, it's okay, but I mean, you're not a wizard. Don't expect to be a wizard here. Sanctuary is fantastic. It's an AoE heal that heals yourself and all players for 5 seconds. Keep in mind this means enemy players. Now if it's undead PvE, it actually does damage to them. You can use this in cases like Ghost King if you don't have cleanse and he leeches on you. Keep in mind when you cast this, you are standing still, which means you are vulnerable. Locust Swarm has finally been buffed, and first impression, it seems okay. I'd rather have Earthquake, but if you have a team with lots of reliable CC, it might be viable. Earthquake is fantastic. They've just nerfed it to 1 charge now though. It's great for setting up your teammates, but don't take it solo. Otherwise the enemy will just stand still, use ranged weapons on you, and take no damage. And finally, Resurrection is very clutch when you need it. It allows you to res a teammate without going to an altar of sacrifice. This makes it incredibly fast to get your team back online after a Pyrrhic victory. You should take this if you have the spell cost and if you expect to outlive your teammates. Alright, so for armor, I'm not going to get too deep into this. Iron Mace has been changing the balancing of armor very often recently, and I don't want to give you advice that might change with next week's patch. That being said, pretty much every single stat line, strength, agility, will, knowledge, and the future ones, which are dexterity and vigor, all of these stats are very useful for us, not so much resourcefulness. Now, if you're a backline, you're going to want to focus on your will and knowledge more. This will help you cast faster and make your spells more powerful. If you are a hybrid or a frontline or a solo, then strength and agility as well as vigor and dexterity are a little bit more important. Magical healing is very good for improving our healing. All attributes is amazing because it gives us all the stats that we want. Weapon damage is obviously great on our weapons. Move speed is incredibly important because it helps us round out one of our biggest weaknesses, which is speed and getting kited. Armor stacking can be pretty good, especially in full plate, and you can reach very high levels of PDR. If you only have 20 gold to spend, I recommend you buy boots and gloves because these have no negative move speed downsides, only positive upsides. And if you're spending under 100 gold, the first thing I recommend you upgrade is your weapon. This affects your DPS greatly. Alright, now I'd like to go over a few concepts on how to play Cleric, and hopefully this will improve your gameplay. Keep in mind you can always use the YouTube chapters below to come back and refresh yourself later. First off is buffing. When a fight is imminent, you should begin buffing your teammates. This could be right before you make entry into a room with enemies, or it could be when enemies are opening a door and about to push you. Keep in mind your buffs have limited duration, so you don't want to cast them too early and have them wear off too early in the fight. If you're running my recommended low gear teamplay build, then you should have 3 buffs. The order that I like to cast these are Protection, Bless, and then Divine Strike in most situations. My thought process behind this is that Protection only needs to last until your teammate gets hit for the first time. Bless, you would ideally like to be on your teammates as long as possible, and Divine Strike has a shorter duration of 20 seconds, so I like to cast that last. Alright, now we're going to go over pocket healing, or charging a heal and holding it ready to cast. Usually this will be done on your front line. Let's take it slow so we can see everything that's going on here. As the fight begins, the enemy team pushes through the doorway. Our wizard moves to the back line to get safe while doing damage. The 2 front lines move to engage each other. Here you see the enemy cleric has just healed his front line. I'm holding a large heal and waiting. I want my front line to take more damage before I heal him. A split second after my front line takes damage, I throw a Holy Light on him. This allows him to take another 1 to 2 hits in the fight, which is massive. This is the pivotal moment in the fight, and it's where they lose. You'll notice both clerics are landing heals. However, our wizard is about to land massive damage, and their wizard is not. Why? Positioning. Their cleric is blocking the doorway. Even if he's crouched, it's still hard for their wizard to land damage. Their barbarian goes down. I throw a protection on our front line. He takes a massive direct hit fireball, so I begin healing him and communicate with him. while dodging. He backs around out of view, I land a massive heal so he's back up. I turn around to give some love to our wizard, but unfortunately, the spell does not go off. Why? Well, when you use a spellbook, your right hand has a hitbox, and as you can see, my right hand is hitting a wall here. Therefore, I can't finish casting the spell. A magic staff has the hitbox on the right in front of you. Not like this. Now let's watch it at full real speed, and I'll show you the end.
I'm blocking from Cleric.
I'm pocketing you. Keep going. Oh, back.
I'm dead. He's zapped.
He's chaining. He's earthquaked. He's dead, I think.
You got him.
Yes. That was a nice chain lightning duck. But anyways, as you can see, things happen so quickly in a team fight. Don't be discouraged if you're missing heals as a cleric. It happens, and the more time you play the game, the better you'll get at it. That said, let me show you something you can do to improve your ability to land heals. Let's say the enemy's over here. This is your teammate. If you're parallel to him like this, it's a little bit harder to keep your crosshair on him and to heal him like this. Now, let's imagine we get in the same line of movement as he is. As my front line goes towards the door, I can just very easily hit him like this. I don't have to move the crosshair as much, it's much easier. So if I can, I like to stack up behind my teammates and follow their movement. It makes healing a lot easier. Whereas if you're standing off to the side, that's the battle over there. This is your teammate. It's a bit hard to like focus on your teammate and worry about, ranged poke damage. And then you got your second teammate. Yeah. So I recommend stacking behind your teammates when possible and matching their movement. In order to clear faster with Holy Purification, what you can do is run into a room, aggro all the mobs, and then, ideally from a safe spot, cast Holy Purification, hitting them all. This means every mob should be 1 or 2 shot afterwards, and you can easily finish them off. So, bossing is a true test of your cleric skill. Not only do you have to worry about adds and boss mechanics and boss aggro, but you are also having to worry about your teammates and keeping them up. Also, you will often have extra duties such as Holy Purification, ad clearing, or cleansing certain debuffs from bosses. This is a beautiful max range flick heal. Oof. Okay, so now this clip is from 2 months ago, and I'm making a mistake that a lot of newer clerics make during boss fights, which is mostly focusing on supporting your teammates and not doing DPS yourself. However, this clip is from a month ago. Ideally, you want to spend most of your time in the boss room doing DPS rather than having to heal or buff your teammates. Most bosses have unavoidable damage built into their mechanics. However, keep in mind that for the most part, if your teammate makes a mistake, you're going to have to heal them to correct that mistake, which takes away time off DPS. If you have someone on your team who knows the mechanics and is experienced, while maybe the other players are not, you can have him call out the mechanics as they happen to the team. It can be incredibly helpful. The best way to get better at bossing is number 1, make sure you have full knowledge about the boss you are facing, all their special mechanics and how to counter them. And then second, really you just have to do it, practice. You may die the first few times, but every death is a valuable lesson which makes you better the next time. Eventually, once you get things down, you can even consider solo bossing. I do have a quick guide on solo Ghost King on my channel. Brothers and sisters, as promised, here is your face reveal. Now, I considered not doing this for some time. What if people from my real life find this channel and don't like it? But then I realized, who cares? Life is short. Do what makes you happy as long as you're not hurting other people. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this cleric guide. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I might do more class guides like this for all the other classes, or maybe a guide on how to get better at Dark and Darker, just in general. We have about 20 followers on Twitch. I'm still very interested in streaming on Twitch, but I'm a little afraid of being like a 3-viewer Andy. So if you want to help me out and you're interested in that content, maybe subscribe to the channel. I'll put it in the description below, or follow. Let me know what you think about this guide in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I always will. With that being said, I wish you all the best of luck in the dungeon. Not like this.